Welcome to Ask the Edmonds Cop. I'm Teresa Whipple. We are going to talk today about something a little bit more big picture.
Okay.
And that is...
Not traffic?
Not traffic.
Hey, day off from traffic.
We're going to do kind of a high-level view.
Okay.
And it's going to relate to if people want to get a better sense, a better picture of kind of what the department's doing, both in terms of the most recent year and then kind of looking forward, where can they find that
Sure.
information? And you had let me know, and I wasn't aware of, I knew about that you do an annual report.
We do.
that
Comes
talks
out every year.
Every year.
That's why we
and
call
that's
it the
what
annual report.
Right. But you also have a strategic plan, a multi-year strategic plan.
Yes.
That goes from here till 2020 that talks about kind of what the future will look like
Mm-hmm.
for the department. So let's talk just a little bit about the annual report,
Sure.
which people may not have looked at. That's obviously on the police website, and we'll put a link up to that so people
is.
can see.
It's under our department info section.
Yes, but it does have some interesting statistics. Like, I think a lot of people may not be aware of just how many calls the police respond to and
Yeah.
how broad-based the area is. I think a lot of us just think of Edmonds as this kind of sleepy little quiet downtown core, but there's a lot more to
Yeah,
it.
I've heard that a lot. People, oh, where do you work? They find out you're a police officer. Where do you work? I work in Edmonds. Oh, you must be so bored. I mean, downtown, there can't be anything going on down there.
Yeah.
It's like, well, Edmonds is a lot more than just downtown.
Yep.
We have a bustling highway corridor. We've got a lot of residential area. I mean, we're the third largest city in Snohomish County.
Yeah.
So Marysville overtook us a few years ago thanks to some annexations, and Everett sits at number one.
Right.
But, when you look at actual volume of the city, we're the third largest.
Yeah.
And so we do have police activity, and a lot of that stuff is in that annual report. And it gets pretty detailed into the weeds and a lot of crime statistics and, what are our officers doing. So it's a good place to really go and see what's happening from a statistical standpoint and give you kind of a good picture
Right.
as far as that goes. We respond to 30,000 incidents roughly a year.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think people would be surprised. I'm not as surprised anymore because I do look at the police report summary you put out every
Yeah.
week. But just kind of some of the crimes that you guys deal with that are not expected in this sleepy little town, quote unquote.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
Everything from a lot of drug issues and prostitution and other things that you
Sure.
don't think are necessarily happening here. So it's
Yeah.
a good reminder to folks that you guys are dealing with a lot of things. And in terms of the strategic plan, this was kind of something we had chatted about earlier. In the 2011 or so, there were a lot of things that the department was dealing with related to budget cuts that the city itself was facing. There were lots of positions that you didn't fill. The street crimes unit that you
Yep.
had gone away.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the past. And now, as you're looking forward with the strategic plan, there's some kind of big things that you guys are looking at implementing. And why don't you highlight what you think is most important?
There is. The strategic plan is actually kind of a cool report. It goes back, if you want to know what our staffing levels have looked like, it actually goes back into the 80s.
Oh, wow.
So you can chart all the way through what our support staff has looked at, how many officers we've had, and it really gives you kind of a historical view of what that looks like, which is kind of neat to
Yeah.
see where we've been and where we're at now, and then where do we want to go to in the future. We talked about street crimes. It also lays out what our goals are for the next year and then the coming years. And we think that's important because one of our core values is stewardship. And reality is, if you're a taxpayer here, it's your money.
Right.
And you should know where we're looking at spending it as far as protecting you and your public safety goes. So that's important to us, that it's not a big secret, what are we going to do with our budget? So you can really take a look at that.
Okay.
Those lean years, we lost specialties. Street crimes was one of the first things cut. Funding for a school resource officer. And that's been, people with everything going on in the schools nationwide, people have really been saying, hey, is that going to come back?
Yeah.
That's in the works.
Good.
Street crimes is now filled. We've got everybody selected for it. They're going to start all their training stuff, and it's going to be back up and running here real soon.
Right. And when it comes to street crimes, I think it's important to mention, I mean, that when you talk about that highway corridor, and
Yep.
that's where a lot of that emphasis is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's where a lot of the drugs and other crimes
Sure.
that the street crimes unit deals with. I mean, what those
Yep.
are, just talk just a minute about what street crimes does.
Yeah, so the highway is probably our busiest section. It's essentially its own patrol district.
Okay.
For the most part, it's the smallest area, but it's also the busiest at the same time.
Yeah.
So we assign one officer to the highway every single shift, and they're really a directed patrol unit is kind of what it comes down to. If we're having specific issues, maybe it's vehicle prowls. In one neighborhood, we've seen a bunch of them, and then it's not an isolated thing. Then we get a whole nother cluster in the same area. Maybe we're having issues with prostitution in the area or a string of burglaries, and they're able to dedicate their time to really focusing on that area to see if we can catch who's doing it or put a stop to it. Whereas, if you're driving a patrol car, you're kind of stuck with whatever you get dispatched to. You
Yeah.
have discretionary time when the radio's quiet, but if it's busy and you're going from call to call to call, you're not going to be able to sit in a neighborhood or really give it that directed patrol.
Yeah.
So that opens up a whole nother avenue for us.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I think, if you want to know what's going on in your police department, it's a good place to start on the police website. Please check out the link, and we'll be back again soon with another episode of Ask the Edmonds Cop.